just tell us who you are and a little background, and then you can share at any point on your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Megan Falce, and I work at the Pine Mountain Settlement School. I have been here for about 5 years. I'm part of the environmental education crew. I teach children and learners of all ages who come and visit the settlement school. We're fortunate enough to have around 1,000 students visit us every year, not to mention students that travel as far as Denmark, a lot from all over the state of Kentucky, Alabama, Ohio, Indiana, etc. And so when I was asked to do this presentation, I was a little bit nervous because, well, Pine Mountain is just so significant all in itself. Just if you were to choose one topic to talk about, you could just talk all day, all week, all month. And I'm used to an audience of 4th and 5th graders, so excuse me if I tend to be a little over charismatic. That's just what I'm used to doing. And two, talking amongst my peers, I tend to be a little intimidated. It's a little change of scenery, so y'all bear with me if you don't mind. I have some notes that you'll see me glancing back and forth and referencing, so that's what I'm up to if you see that going on. So I also wanted to take on this presentation to further my knowledge about the settlement school and the flora and fauna around the school, and of course the Pine Mountain range in itself. And so it's a joy and a privilege to work at the settlement school, and a joy and privilege to present this to you guys. So I'll go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint. Please let me know if it's up. Like I said, I don't have a lot of Zoom experience, so let me know if you guys can see it.
That's working. You'll just need to start the show.
Okay. Oh shoot, y'all, like I said, bear with me. I gotta find where I can present. Oh, there we go. I might be a millennial, but I'm not good with technology. All right, guys, so Pine Mountain is incredible. It's unique. It's a marvel, like I said, all on its own. And talking about just the flora and fauna of Pine Mountain, it seems like such a hard and difficult task. You know, it's a biodiverse black hole. It's a naturalist dream. I asked Jeremy right away, how much time do I have? How many slides are too much? Just because there's so much topic and so much to cover. So just bear with me as I measle my way through at a snail's pace. So just to give you guys a little bit of stats and info about Pine Mountain, I apologize if you've already heard this before. But Pine Mountain is the 2nd most biologically diverse region in the temperate zone in the world. It supports 155 bird species, 66 fish, 15 snakes, 5 turtles, 4 lizards, 36 mammals, 14 salamanders, 9 frogs, 15 snails, 10 bats. I've lost my place already. Y'all bear with me. Oh, 13 crawdads, 4 mussels, 482 wildflowers, 32 ferns, 58 trees, and 52 shrubs. We'll go more into depth with these stats, but let's review Pine Mountain Range details. And like I said, I apologize if you've already heard this stuff. I know that we've already had a Zoom on the geology of Pine Mountain, so just bear with me, but I think it's essential to cover this stuff because it is a direct reflection of the flora and fauna, these species that you're going to find on the mountain. So the Pine Mountain Ridgeline, it's a 125-mile long forested ridgeline that runs from Jellicoe, Tennessee through eastern Kentucky to the Breaks Interstate Park in southwestern Virginia. It is part of the Eastern Kentucky Coalfield Physiographic Region, as well as the Cumberland Mountains Natural Region. It was formed by the Pine Mountain Overthrust Fault when strata was forced to move horizontally and upward, producing a large overthrust sheet. It is comprised of limestone, shale, sandstone, and non-merchantable coal. Many years of weathering and erosion has resulted in dramatic features such as overhangs, rock outcrops, protrusions, and deep gorges, such as this gorge here at Breaks Interstate State Park. So the streams that flow off the mountain are actually part of the headwaters of the Kentucky, Cumberland, and Big Sandy rivers. There's a variety of soil types on the mountain, and they vary from place to place, from thin, acidic, and sandy to deep, non-acidic, and clayey, to a mix of both. Dr. Emma Lucy Braun, who I will talk more about later, described the soils on Pine Mountain in relation to the mountain's topography and vegetation, and she categorized the vegetation on the mountain into 4 distinct plant communities: the southeast or dip slope, the summit, ravines of the dip slope, and the northwest slope. This is relevant because in her research, she learned that these plant communities differ greatly from one another and often in short distance, and that there was a striking dependence of communities on local factors such as geological structure. This is actually a panoramic cluster of photos that Lucy Braun pieced together when she visited High Rock in Letcher County on Pine Mountain on the 4th of July in 1933. I just think it's just a remarkable piece of history. She has High Rock elevation 3,200 foot, a part of the rugged crest of Pine Mountain in Letcher County, and it offers a view of the Cumberland Plateau from High Rock near the Virginia border. Whitesburg is on the North Fork of the Kentucky River and lies 2,000 feet below. So the mixed mesophytic forest is one of the most diverse temperate zone forests in the world and the most diverse forest type in the U.S. It was Dr. Lucy Braun who labeled Pine Mountain as supporting a mixed mesophytic forest, a term she coined in 1919. It is complex of forest communities adapted to cool and moist conditions. Meso equals moist or means moist. The mixed mesophytic forests are an example of an ancient forest type with very high diversity. It is a mix of deciduous and evergreen species. These forests can support a large variety of canopy tree species, along with rich understories made up of ferns, fungi, perennial and annual herbaceous plants, shrubs, small trees, and diverse animal communities. Historically, the American chestnut was an important canopy component of the mixed mesophytic forest, taking up 45% of the canopy. 7 out of 10 trees were American chestnut, and it was the dominant tree species in the eastern forest ecosystem. They could easily grow to 100 feet tall and have a diameter of 5 feet. Larger specimens have been recorded up to 10 feet in diameter, which I think is just remarkable. I love this photograph of some folks standing in front of an American chestnut in the Great Smoky Mountains. It just gives you a good idea of the scale that we were dealing with, and I just wish so much that these trees were still in our forests. They were very crucial to the life in the area. Their nuts fed wildlife, livestock, and people, and the wood was preferred for cabins, fencing, furniture, and tools. The species is now in danger, with majority of the population being decimated by the chestnut blight fungus. Stump sprouts are still found regularly on Pine Mountain. I find them personally a lot on the south side of the mountain, as well as remaining stumps from the giant trunks. We have several large stumps here in the James E. Bickford State Nature Preserve at Pine Mountain Settlement School. The tulip poplar, it replaced the American chestnut as the dominant tree species, along with species of oaks, red maple, ash, and hickories. It is, of course, Kentucky state tree, the most common tree in Kentucky and on Pine Mountain, and is the tallest eastern hardwood. Lucy Braun visited Big Poplar, which was located in Perry County, sized at 24 feet in circumference. You can see her picture there in front of you. She shared with the Garden Club of Kentucky in 1935. It took 5 people with arms outstretched to reach around the tree. This gigantic trunk towered upward, unbranched to such heights that it was impossible to distinguish the leaves of the crown. Nowhere east of California have I seen such a gigantic tree. And the map on the left is just an illustration. That's her writing, just mapping where the big poplar was. Pine Mountain itself hosts 58 tree species, ranging from, or common species include the American beech, sugar maple, yellow buckeye, oaks, hickory, such as my favorite, which is the shagbark hickory, birch, eastern white pine, and eastern hemlock. Those are the common canopy species that you're going to find on Pine Mountain. And then there's also common sub-canopy species, which include serviceberry, or as I grew up learning it, sarvis. I did not know that serviceberry was what the tree was called because I grew up hearing it as sarvis, actually, until I started working at Pine Mountain Settlement School. I always knew it as sarvis. The eastern redbud, sassafras, sourwood, flowering dogwood, big leaf, cucumber, Fraser, and umbrella magnolias, American holly, witch hazel, and of course, one of my favorites too, the pawpaw. So we also have 58 shrub species on Pine Mountain. They're scattered throughout the mountain, including mountain laurel, catawba and great rhododendron, wild hydrangea, strawberry bush, also known as hearts of bursting with love, buffalo nut, which is actually endemic to the Appalachians, the Cumberland azalea, which is a species that Dr. Lucy Braun named, spice bush, and elderberry. So Pine Mountain has just under 500 wildflower species. The James E. Bigeared State Nature Preserve alone has over 100 wildflower species. The herb layer of Pine Mountain is extremely impressive during all seasons. You have trilliums, you have lady slippers and other orchids, violets, phlox, lilies, buttercups, red columbine, foamflower, mayapple, chickweeds, goldenrods, asters, and jewelweed. These all just scratch the surface. I'm a big fan of wildflowers, and I knew that if I lingered too much on wildflowers of Pine Mountain, that's what this whole presentation would turn into. So I'm trying to just skim past it just a little bit. And here are some photos of some of the common and not so common species that you're going to find on the mountain. Of course, we've got a yellow trout lily, common violet, and foamflower. You go back, we have the great white trillium, wild blue phlox, and then a pink lady slipper. And then we have some not so common and endangered and rare species here. At the top, we have the rose begonia, which is only found in one place in Kentucky on Pine Mountain. I've had the privilege to see that species in real time, and it's just so beautiful. And then we have the world begonia, which is pictured below. And then of course we have the large yellow and small yellow lady slipper, both on Pine Mountain. The small yellow is considered endangered. And all three of these species I've had the privilege of being able to see. You're going to find amazing wildflowers through all seasons. If you were to just come to see the asters alone, you'd be spending weeks upon weeks looking for all the species you could find on the mountain, just because the forest floor is just carpeted with so many beautiful blooms. So habitat corridors allow movement and spread between isolated populations, promoting increased genetic diversity. Pine Mountain is considered a wildland corridor. They provide food and shelter for a variety of wildlife and help with juvenile dispersal and seasonal migrations. Broken forested areas limit diversity and can cause dramatic declines in population and species health, and can even lead to extirpation and local extinctions. Pine Mountain serves as a refuge and migratory route in Eastern and North America, including for monarch butterflies and birds. And here's a great map that kind of gives you an idea of where some of the migratory birds that make their way to Kentucky, how far they travel down to Central and South America. And then, of course, like I just said, species such as the monarch butterfly follow the mountain range in their annual migrations. And then we also had migratory birds such as the hooded warbler, which is pictured on top, and of course the blue-gray gnatcatcher featured on bottom. They return to Pine Mountain as well. So there are actually 155 bird species found on the mountain. Some are seasonal, like I said, some are year-long residents, and some use the mountain for critical nesting sites. The common raven is one of the rare species that you can find on the mountain. So let's talk about black bears taking advantage of Pine Mountain as a wildland corridor. So American black bears, they've been using the mountain to return back to Kentucky. Black bears were once abundant in the state, but had vanished from the state by the early 1900s due to overlogging and unregulated hunting. Over the past 25 years, they have made a strong comeback, and core populations can be found on Pine Mountain within Harlan, Letcher, and Pike County, according to long-term monitoring and ongoing research with Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. Fish and Wildlife also estimates there to be a population of about 400 black bear within Harlan, Bell, Letcher, and McCreary County. Mammals of Pine Mountain, there are 36 different types that you'll find. They range in size from the tiny house mouse to the white-tailed deer. In the spring, on the mountain, it's sounded off by frogs and toads. The spring peeper is one of the first that you'll hear, sounding off as early as February. When I start hearing the spring peepers on my night hikes, in February and March, I know that spring's coming. I know that winter's on its way out, and springs are making their spring is making its way here, and it makes me super excited. Snakes, turtles, and lizards, Pine Mountain reptiles will not make their appearance, of course, until it's a bit warmer. Pine Mountain has 15 snake species, 5 turtle species, and 4 types of lizards. Of the 15 snakes, there are 4 venomous snake species in Kentucky, and 2 are found on the mountain, which is the copperhead and the timber rattlesnake. All of Kentucky's turtles are aquatic except for the eastern box turtle, which is terrestrial, and you can find the eastern box turtle on Pine Mountain. This is a beautiful picture of a male box turtle. You can tell by the color of his eyes. Males will have yellow, red to orange eyes, and females will have brown eyes. So the Southern Appalachians shelter more species of salamander than anywhere else on the planet, and is referred to as a global hotspot for salamanders. If you take a look at this range map, you can see the yellow and the orange and the red just right over the Appalachian Mountains. And of course, that includes the Cumberland Mountains, which of course includes Pine Mountain. There are 35 species of species of salamanders found in Kentucky. 14 are present on Pine Mountain. We have a green salamander pictured on the top left. We have, of course, the hellbender on the bottom left, and the red spotted newt pictured on the right. 3 of the 14 species are considered rare or endangered. Rarity is actually common on the mountain. There are nearly 100 plant and animal species that are considered rare on Pine Mountain. They include 3 amphibians, 2 freshwater mussels, 4 breeding birds, 6 gastropods, 3 fish, 12 mosses, 9 mammals, 41 vascular plants, 1 reptile, 3 crustaceans, and 14 insects. The most common ways that species become endangered is a loss of habitat followed by exotic invasive species. And while Pine Mountain is free of mineable coal, forest tracts have become fragmented due to logging, limestone quarries and natural gas operations. If you've ever crossed Pine Mountain from Harlan to the north side of Pine Mountain across 421, you'll have passed a large gravel quarry that's on the mountain. Or if you make your way from the north side of Pine Mountain over to the town of Cumberland in Harlan County, there's another limestone quarry there as well. So exotic invasive species spread is also a problem, of course. Kudzu, multiflora rose, oriental bittersweet tree of Heaven, and the hemlock woolly adelgid are just a few of the many invasives on the mountain. Really, it's manpower and money that takes to control these species. And unfortunately, that's not always something that organizations or groups who are preserving land has. So it's just a constant battle, unfortunately. Invasive species in the United States cost the country an estimated $137 billion in both management and damage. So I want to switch gears just a little bit because I feel that it's notable to mention that there are hundreds of cave openings along the north and south slope of Pine Mountain and are home to common, rare, endangered, and endemic species to those caves or to the mountain. For example, Sawmill Hollow Cave, which is in Harlan County, is actually located in the James E. Bigeared State Nature Reserve here at Pine Mountain Settlement School. It hosts the Rogers Cave beetle and the scholarly cave beetle, both of which are endemic to the cave. There's also been an undescribed cave obligate and millipede and a freshwater isopod endemic to the cave as well. Those have not been found since in about 40 to 50 years. Line Fork Cave, oh, I forgot to mention this. My personal and only sighting of the spotted skunk was actually in a cave located on the south side of Pine Mountain. It's a cave that we take students to. Sometimes we just refer to it as the Sand Cave. And this photograph was taken by one of my coworkers, William Field, when we saw that spotted skunk. That's the only time I've ever seen it, and it happened to be down in a cave, which was so unexpected, at least for me. Let's talk real quick about Line Fork Cave. It is a winter roost for nearly 3,000 Indiana bats. It's located in Letcher County. And of course, Indiana bats are endangered. And in Line Fork Cave, it is the third largest colony of the bat in the state of Kentucky. So there are actually still species being discovered on the mountain, including this yellow spotted woodland salamander. It was discovered in 2019. It was thought actually to be a variation of the Worrell's salamander, and it's only known from 12 sites in Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And of course, the southernmost populations are mainly associated with Pine Mountain, and it favors shell and sandstone rock outcrops. So like I mentioned just a moment ago, I work directly in the James E. Bigeared State Nature Preserve, which is managed by Pine Mountain Settlement School and the Kentucky State Nature Preserve Commission. Just a few stats about that preserve, since it's dear to my heart. It's 348 acres on the north face of Pine Mountain. Like I was talking about just a moment ago, it protects Sawmill Hollow Cave. The cave was developed in the limestone layer and it is exposed on the north face of the mountain and features 4 endemic species. There are 6 rare plant species, including the red twig dog hobble and the American golden saxifrage. Crucial to the preservation of species in the Bigeared Preserve, as well as identifying and documenting species at the settlement school, is Ben Bengley. He was the educator and director of environmental education at Pine Mountain Settlement School from 1986 to 2014. He developed and taught curriculum for the Pine Mountain Settlement School environmental education program. Of course, he assisted in developing the James E. Bigeared State Nature Preserve Flora and Fauna Guide, as well as developing the vascular flora checklist of Pine Mountain Settlement School. Ben and his wife, Pat, taught over 75,000 students in their 28-year tenure here at the settlement school, and they retired in 2014. And unfortunately, Ben passed away in 2018. I have to always talk about Ben any chance I get, just because I grew up with him and Pat coming to the settlement school, coming to day camps and community events at the settlement school when I was growing up. And there is no doubt about it that Ben knew the significance of Pine Mountain, especially here on the North Slope in the Bigeared Preserve. So another contributor that I want to talk about to Pine Mountain species identification is Roger Barber. He was a college professor, zoologist, and naturalist from Moorhead. He made a trip to Harlan County in July of 1946, and on this trip, he collected 300 mammals, 170 reptiles, 1,350 amphibians, and 200 plant specimens. You may recognize this name if you own naturalist guides that are specific to Kentucky, because he has authored Mammals of Kentucky, Trees and Shrubs of Kentucky, as well as guides such as the American Darters and Turtles of the World. Next, I want to talk about Samuel Rafinesque. He served as the professor of botany at Transy University in Lexington from 1819 to 1826. During this time, he published scientific names both in the United States and in Europe for thousands of plants and hundreds of animals. And I thought this was worth mentioning too. He identified 148 prehistoric Indian sites in the state of Kentucky, which I think is really interesting. And another reason that I wanted to bring him up is because, and a reason that I haven't talked about bats on Pine Mountain, is because I was waiting to talk about him and mention the bat species, including or called Rafinesque Bigeared Bat. It is, of course, named after him and is Transy University school mascot. Which I thought was pretty cool. It is of special concern status in Kentucky. You can find it roosting in small clusters or in larger groups of 100 or more. In most colonies, females outnumber the males. When disturbed, they tend to wake pretty quickly and flee immediately. So to continue our conversation about bats, of the 16 species of bats in Kentucky, 10 are found on Pine Mountain. 2 of those species are endangered, the Indiana bat and the gray bat pictured here. And unfortunately, bats on Pine Mountain are under threat from the white nose syndrome, a fungus that makes its way around the muzzle of the bat. Species such as the little brown bat that's found on Pine Mountain tend to be especially susceptible and vulnerable, and populations are in decline of that species. Of course, it's worth mentioning that all of Kentucky's bats are insectivores. I want to also talk about Dr. Lucy Brown again. Some folks I've heard say Brown, so if you're one of those folks who say Lucy Brown, I apologize. I always learned it as Brown. Like I had talked about her earlier and mentioned that I would cover some stats about her again. During the 1930s to 50s, Lucy Brown provided an extensive research on the geology and flora of the Cumberland Mountains. She provided detailed accounts on the last remaining undisturbed forests of the Cumberland, Black, and Pine Mountains. She was present in the area when the last remaining American chestnuts were standing and were in demise due to the chestnut blight. She discovered and named several species on Pine Mountain, including the Cumberland azalea. Also located in Harlan County, just on the south side of the mountain, is 609 acres dedicated to Lucy Braun called the E. Lucy Braun State Nature Preserve. If you've never had a chance to go, I highly encourage. It features sandstone outcrops with old pitch pines and Virginia pines, as well as mosses and lichens. It hosts a pine woodland, which is a rare community type, as well as hosting an Appalachian bog, of course, which is one of the rarest natural communities in the state of Kentucky. Rare plants such as the showy gentian and pale corydalis are in the preserve and restricted to Pine Mountain. It is also the location of a only state recorded site of a globally rare club moss. Several years ago, it was the last in the footsteps of Lucy Braun workshop that Ben Bengley attended. He wanted to show some folks this club moss, and if you know Ben, you know that he was not afraid to traverse into territories if he wanted to look at a plant. And he warned us, hey, we're about to go into some pretty snaky territory, of course, with these rock outcrops. You're just asking to come across, copperheads denning. And but there was a group of us that followed him. We wanted to see this club moss. If he thought that it was worthy to march into snaky territory, we did too. But like I said, it is globally rare, and it is in the nature preserve, the Lucy Braun State Nature Preserve. Something that is worth mentioning is that there are efforts in place to preserve and protect land on Pine Mountain. And not only land, but water and species as well. There are currently, I'm sorry, this slide isn't the best. I had to kind of chop and move some things around to get it to fit into the slide correctly. But there are currently 14 nature preserves, 4 state parks, 3 wildlife management areas, 2 state forests, and 2 national forests on the mountain. These areas are managed by a variety of organizations. A lot of them work together, or they partner up in managing these areas with joint efforts. Some of these folks include the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, Kentucky Division of Water, Division of Forestry, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Kentucky Natural Lands Trust, the State Nature Preserve Commission, Kentucky Department of Parks, Pine Mountain Settlement School, the Pine Mountain Trail Conference, the Southeast Education Foundation, and the Kentucky chapter of the Nature Conservancy, Tennessee Wildlife Research Agency, and the USDA Forest Service as well. This is such a neat graphic, I feel like, because it, of course, highlights and shows you these areas that are currently protected and being preserved and managed, and species are being documented within these preserves if they haven't already, just to further increase our knowledge of what we have on the mountain. You can see there's large gaps that are not highlighted. Of course, organizations like the Kentucky Natural Lands Trust are working to fill those gaps and purchase these lands from landowners if possible, in order to preserve as much land on the mountain as possible. Something I want to leave you guys with is one of my favorite Wendell Berry quotes: "The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it and to foster its renewal is our only hope." I'm not sure who was in here listening in, but if you're listening in, that means you care about Pine Mountain, you care about species in Kentucky, and so I'm sure that this quote is something that's also close to your heart. Like I said, I know I breezed through this super quick. My nerves were getting the best of me, so thank you guys for being patient. Of course, if you guys have any questions or want to talk about any of the work we do here at Pine Mountain, I would love to hear what you guys have got to say. I'll go ahead and take off my PowerPoint.
If you have questions, you'll just have to unmute yourself. It's our custom to mute everybody when we start the presentation, but you can unmute yourselves, I believe, or you can put things in the chat box. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the little chat icon, and so you can click on that and just type in any questions that you might have. And that was a great presentation, Megan.
And like I said, my nerves were getting the best of me, so thank you all for being patient with me as I rushed through it. I'm used to 4th and 5th graders, and somehow I'm a little bit more comfortable in front of them, but I'm so happy for the opportunity to share some of this information with you guys, and I hope you all at least learned something.
Hey Megan, this is Jeremy Williams.
Hey Jeremy.
Thank you very much. Definitely appreciate it. Sorry I got on so late, but had a meeting that went a little longer than I thought. But
that is
great
okay.
job on what part I listened to. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
And we do have one question about, will we post the video afterward and where? And we do post it onto YouTube, and we usually share it at the different, I know Letcher County and I believe Wise share it to their Facebook page. And Jeremy, I'm just assuming that you do the same. Is that correct?
Usually what I do, Shad, is I just refer them to your page, or actually Phil's page.
Okay. Megan, one thing that I was going to ask you about, and I didn't know if it was something that was anything that you've studied or not, but there is one that is down there really close to you, is the reference to some of the bogs that are on Pine Mountain, some of those upland bogs.
That is unfortunately something I've never had a chance to go visit. I just have got to talk the right person into it, I suppose. I've definitely heard about it. I know that there's one, I believe, close to KNLT's property on Pine Mountain that you can access right by the rock hanging on 421, if you know where I'm referencing, where they can go up to the top of the mountain just on the north side back from the from Blank Forest.
That Lucy Braun Nature Preserve actually has a small one on it.
Yeah.
So.
And I've been, to that preserve about 3 times now. Just one time with, just kind of exploring. The other 2 times have always been, with the Lucy Braun in the footsteps of Lucy Braun Wildflower Weekend and Naturalist Weekend that we host. Other people, of course, were leading that, and I was just tagging along. But I've often wondered where it's at, because there's, that water runoff. Just makes its way down the mountain, and I've come across several pools, but none of it seems to be that bog habitat that I'm picturing in my head. So that's something, unfortunately, I haven't been to, but I hope to get there eventually.
If you ever get a chance to hike the Highlands section of the Pine Mountain Trail, it goes past 2 of the bogs, and some have sphagnum in them, but a lot of them are just, there's a lot of pea vine, there's a lot of cardinal flower, a lot of fern, and the one that is closest to where I live, you showed, I think there was a wood frog, or it looked like a wood frog in one of the pictures. It might have been a peeper. But,
yeah, it was a spring peeper, but yeah.
That red looking picture. I've seen one of the bogs, I guess it was during mating season for the wood frogs, and there were just thousands. And so I've never seen anything like that. And I was walking by and just heard it and went down to it. So definitely a special place.
I have heard that there are some species of plants that are like carnivorous in some of the bogs on Pine Mountain. Is that true?
There were accounts very early on, according to Kyle Napier, if you know Kyle.
Okay, yep.
That there were pitcher plants that were found in some of those bogs. And I have never found them. He asked me if I'd ever seen any, and I didn't really see any pitcher plants in the wild until we got pretty far north, but apparently they were here at one point.
Oh, wow. So I'm sure they haven't been documented or confirmed to still be there for quite some time.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, they haven't been. There was another question on here. Have you come across old orchards on the Virginia side of Pine Mountain? And
You know, as far as the Virginia side of the mountain, I've been up to Breaks Interstate Park and things like that. But, you know, I haven't came across anything like that because I've just stayed within the park boundaries now. There have been several orchards I've come across on Black Mountain. And then, of course, here you know, on Pine Mountain's property, since it was a boarding school and it was self-sufficient for boarding school students from 1913 on to about the 40s and 50s, they had, of course, livestock animals, they had gardens, and they had lots of orchards. And there's quite a bit of old orchards here along the campus property, but none like you had mentioned on the Virginia side of the mountain.
there is the remnants of one that is at the bog that I was telling you about.
Okay.
It's called the Old Mead Home Place. And there are some old apple trees there. I think the really old ones have died now, but they were, you know, 80, 100-year-old apple trees.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All right.
Megan, we had a couple of folks from the settlement school take the Virginia Master Naturalist class. Eva Galtney and Emily.
They were two of my AmeriCorps Vistas. I'm the intern and Vista coordinator here for the settlement school. I served as a Vista here and actually earned my bachelor's degree, and then I become the coordinator. And they had asked about joining that Master's Naturalist program, and they really seem to enjoy it. Unfortunately, they're not still here. Emily is back in Western Kentucky. She's actually going to school to be an RN. And Eva, I'm not sure how much you knew about her. She is a master weaver. She's amazing on floor looms. She's so talented with anything textile, and she's actually in Massachusetts at the Vavstuga Weaving School. They usually come down, well, they came down back in October, and we met here at the settlement school and had a social distance campfire and things. But I really wanted to attend that Master Naturalist program. Unfortunately, I was in my last semester of my bachelor's degree, so I was like, nope, I'm not taking on anything. But is that still something that is offered?
It is, and of course, with this year, we were going to do one this summer, but we're the board I know right now is looking at the possibility of doing a virtual for 2021. So we're going to kind of toss that around and see what happens.
How can you go about getting more information or getting updates when they're decided?
List if you want.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
From Jeremy's email, if you'd like, I can add you.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Okay. Well, Megan, that was excellent. Thank you so much for taking your time to make the presentation and doing such a fine job. And that just increases the appreciation for Pine Mountain. So, Robert Myers is raising his hand. So I'm not sure if he's giving you a high five or if he's got.
No, I was going to tell you something. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Hey, Megan, this is Robert Myers, State Naturalist. I'm sorry I jumped in late. I'm over here at the gym walking, but this is on a side note. When we had our trail maintenance class a couple of years ago, I had some Pine Mountain settlement people, school people, going to sign up and join us.
Yeah.
And that kind of fell by the wayside. And we are going to do another one of those maintenance classes at Cumberland Falls in the spring. I know Olivia came down and worked with you.
Yep.
So I'm extending that invitation if you all want to send some people. I don't have a set date yet, but I'm going to have that in a month or two, and I'll send that information to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I don't have to be like state park employee or anything. Like my husband's a state park employee, if that helps anything. But
yeah, I met your husband. No, okay. The only thing we'll have you do is fill out in a volunteer form.
Okay.
No biggie. So just think about that, who you want to bring.
Unfortunately, I'm the only staff actually in the EE department at Pine Mountain. We're skeleton crew after my Vistas, after their internship ended. I'm the only person here. I'm part-time. But if by any chance spring I'm allowed to bring on any interns, I would love to do that, or bring along some interested maintenance staff. They usually go and help me take care of some of the bigger stuff. So I think that would be really beneficial for them too.
Yeah, I was trying to get your husband to come to this last one, but Sherry wouldn't let him come.
You'll have to
I guess
get
they were
her.
busy.
Oh, they've been so overwhelmed with Christmas lights.
Oh yeah.
If you are not if you're a Scrooge, stay clear from Kingdom Come State Park, because they are in the Christmas spirit right now for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I wanted to throw in there. And it was
Okay, great. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm very interested.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Okay. Well, I got started at Black Bear and on, so I'm going to watch the replay.
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
All right. No problem. Thank you, Megan. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Robert. Okay. Well, I guess that's it. And we want to thank everyone for tuning in. Phil, do you have what the next Zoom is for Thursday?
Yes, Debbie Hale from Wise County is going to be doing on Thursday evening at 6 o'clock. She's going to be doing history of Pine Mountain. And I saw her PowerPoint today. I'm pretty excited about it. She's got a lot of old pictures and a lot of old names of people who were in the community and very involved in some of the historical happenings on Pine Mountain.
All right, very good. Well, folks, we hope you'll join us again on Thursday. And until then, stay safe and stay warm.
Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, Jeremy.